Remember how Goten told you that this was supposed to be a top 15? Well, I only have 13 games to talk about. Would have been 14 if Dragon Power didn't do, well, this infinitely. And I have no idea what I thought the 15th one would be. I have only played 13. And the first 2 minutes of Dragon Power. You know, before it started doing this. So, without further ado, these are my top 13 Dragon Ball games that I've played. Some significant games that I haven't played and therefore won't be on this list include More Than 2 Minutes of Dragon Power, Ultimate Battle 22, GT Final Bout, Super Dragon Ball Z, Infinite World, the Shin Budokai games, Budokai Tenkaichi, Sagas, Legendary Super Warriors, the Legacy of Goku games, GT Transformation, Z Supersonic Warriors 2, the Origins games, Tenkaichi Tag Team, Burst Limit, Raging Blast, for Connect, J-Stars Victory vs. Plus, the recent Extreme Butoden, and, obviously, Xenoverse 2, because that just came out. Those are also in addition to the numerous games that were never even released in North America. Anyways, on with the list. Dragon Ball Z Battle of Z promised 8-person 4-on-4 multiplayer, engaging giant battles, and a somewhat decent single-player experience. With the exception of the first one, it delivers on none of these things. See, there's a common misconception that any game with the Dragon Ball logo must be a fighting game, but that's not necessarily true. Many of the games on this list aren't fighting games. However, this one was labeled and advertised as just that, a fighting game. However, at some points, it seems to be more of a strategy game, where you have to attack the enemy from afar. Except you can't do that because the enemy AI can literally do everything you can't. It can give itself super armor, it can teleport away making you lose your target on it, and it can do ridiculous amounts of damage to you just from regular attacks. This wouldn't be an issue if your helper AI could do the same things, but they might be able to do even less than you can. The helper AI are some of the most incompetent helper AI I've ever seen. This is helped slightly by playing with actual people, and it's even more fair if you're fighting against actual people, but you can only do this online. There is no versus mode or anything. If you want to play as a specific character against a specific character, you have to find a mission with that specific character you want to fight against in it, and if there are other characters to fight in the mission, you just have to deal with it. But there is a way to negate the ridiculous difficulty, and that's using Super Trunks, whose maximum blow can not only guard break, but also give himself super armor. Along with 3 support type characters that keep refilling his ki, this can break almost any mission. Sure, many Dragon Ball games have exploits. Hell, my number 1 spot has a ton of them, but none of them should ever be this game-breaking. And in order to even use him in any mission, you have to beat all the way through Kid Buu, which includes some stupid hard missions the normal way. And not to mention doing the special requirements to unlock him in the first place. Getting Super Saiyan 3 Goku for last Dragon Ball week was bad enough. And I've even heard people say that this game is better than what I chose for my number 1 spot. Without even knowing what it is, you can already tell. That's bullshit. Motion controls can really save or kill a fighting game. If done well, the game can become a fantastic workout that really engages the player in the action. If done badly, you end up with Dragon Ball Z for Connect, with unresponsive movements, delayed actions, and confusing mechanics. But, as I mentioned earlier, I've never played that game, so I can't put it on this list. Regardless, it's still really easy to tell how bad of a game that is because the Kinect was a flawed system as a whole. Many video game companies throughout the years have tried to make motion control-centered consoles, but most of them ended up failing fairly quickly. One that didn't fail, however, was the Nintendo Wii. This system has a ton of games on it, and many of them that took advantage of the motion-controlled Wii Remote were hit or miss. Personally, I think that Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 2 was a miss. The game is mostly controlled using the cursor on the screen, meaning you're constantly pointing the Wii Remote at the sensor bar. Super attacks are done by either moving the cursor off and back on the screen, or pulling the Wii Remote back and then lunging it forward. It's not nearly as engaging as future Dragon Ball games on the Wii, and can be rather frustrating in comparison. And when it comes to repetitive combos and gameplay, while most to all of these games have it, this might be the worst offender. Structurally, however, the game's pretty solid. It was the first Dragon Ball game to introduce team battles, and it covers more of the story than any other game in the franchise, including what-if scenarios and movies. There's also a bit of an RPG system where certain stat-raising items can gain experience, making characters you equip them to more powerful. I don't like it very much because it makes many of the characters feel unbalanced compared to others, and since other games can manage just fine without it, it's a bit unnecessary. I don't know, maybe if I had played the PlayStation 2 version instead of the Wii one, it'd be much higher on the list. There are a few pretty neat full-motion cutscenes that look really good for the time, despite the somewhat stiff animation, that we haven't seen anything like since. That's impressive. Ugh, finally a game I enjoy. Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors for the Game Boy Advance is probably the most solid sprite-based Dragon Ball Z fighting game there is, maybe with the exception of Extreme Butoden on the 3DS. I wouldn't know, I only played the demo. This is one of the few games on this list that really makes me feel like I'm part of the action. It feels like a real fight from the show, only more fast-paced. While there are only 13 playable characters, each one of them gets their own what-if story, and they all get gradually stronger as these stories progress. Frieza becomes immortal, Krillin learns the Kaioken and Spirit Bomb, and Cell fights Majin Buu. You know what? This game's alright. The difficulty can get a bit frustrating in the later portions of most of the stories, but it never feels like the enemy AI can do anything you can't, which was the biggest problem with Battle of Z. If you fail, you just have to do it again better. There are no stats to power up and no crazy button combos to learn like in the Budokai games. All you have are the D-pad, A, B, L, and R. The controls are extremely simple and easy to learn, and it's just plain old fun, and you know what that means. Every game on this list from here on out is really freaking good. Dragon Ball Z Budokai was the first significant Dragon Ball game that people really remember. If you ask someone with a basic understanding of the Dragon Ball franchise what the first Dragon Ball game was, they'll probably say it was Budokai. People don't remember games like Ultimate Battle 22 or GT Final Bout nearly as well because they weren't as good of games as Budokai was. So when Budokai 2 came around, it had a pretty high standard to match. And did it? Well, maybe not as much as it could have, but it was still a damn great game. What turns most people off from this game is just how much it veers off the main story. Nappa and Raditz come to Earth at the same time, Frieza takes the Ginyu Force to Muscle Tower, and, not to mention,
Go, go, Cyber Rangers!
Instead of a linear storyline, each stage is built like a board game, where fights occur when different pieces end up on the same space. As with all Budokai games, the combat system is very simple to learn, despite what I said earlier about crazy button combos. Budokai 2 specifically features many what-if forms including Super Buu absorbing Cell and Frieza, new fusions such as Tiencha and that hypothetical one between Goku and Hercule from the anime, both of which will reappear in the upcoming Dragon Ball Fusions for the 3DS. In addition, exclusive versions of the game include Majin forms of Frieza and Cell, and even a palette swap for Frieza's son Kuriza from Akira Toriyama's Neko Majin spin-off manga. It's also worth mentioning that this was the first medium to feature Future Trunks as a Super Saiyan 2, which carried over into both Budokai 3 and Infinite World. That's right, Super wasn't the first to do it, and neither was Dragon Ball Heroes, but I digress. This game is not perfect. You could just go straight through the story mode, defeating all of the mandatory enemies and doing no extra stuff, but by the time you reach Kid Buu, there will be no chance in the Home for Infinite losers that you'll be able to beat him. Why do you think my Let's Play of it is one part shy of being complete? I never even got Super Saiyan, there was no way I could beat him. And there's not really an easy way to go back to previous stages, so I was kind of screwed. This game is also highly outclassed by its successor, Budokai 3, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it negates any reason to buy 2 over 3 nowadays. Because of this point, I dared to put Budokai 2 even lower than Battle of Z on the original top 10 list. I was so bigoted. As I mentioned with Battle of Z, not all Dragon Ball games are fighting games. Some, such as Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure, are beat-em-ups / action-adventure platformers / whatever you want to call them. Anyways, my point is that a Dragon Ball game doesn't have to be a fighting game to be great. Advanced Adventure is like many 2D side-scrolling beat-em-ups on the SNES and Game Boy Advance, and it covers the entire story of Dragon Ball up through the King Piccolo saga. The difficulty is fair, unless you're on hard mode where you will be destroyed, and the controls are easy to understand. It's a Game Boy Advance game like Supersonic Warriors, so there aren't enough buttons for them to come up with crazy combos. There is a battle mode which plays much more like a fighting game than the main game, despite the similar feel, where the enemy AI can't do anything that you can't do, so it's always a fair fight. Some of these battles are incorporated into the main story mode, in addition to regular bosses in the beat-em-up sections, including those with special weak points such as Major Metallotron and Booyan. There are also plenty of other extra game modes, including one where you can replay the entire game as Krillin, and one where you can find character portraits to play as common enemies or even bosses. There's plenty of replay value, so I highly suggest you check it out. Beat-em-ups still play very similarly to fighting games, usually using the same control schemes. So let's try a game that can't be misconstrued as a fighting game by any stretch of the imagination, even though it still involves fighting. A turn-based RPG. One that doesn't involve cards, thank you. Ah yes, Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans for the Nintendo DS. Coincidentally, it picks up right where Advanced Adventure left off, covering both the Piccolo Jr. and Saiyan sagas, including many fillers and even some new story content, such as Yamcha encountering Monster Carrot once again. I guess he didn't die when Piccolo destroyed the moon. Huh. Despite seemingly covering very little of the story, this game is jam-packed full of content, with items to find, new attacks to learn, and side quests to do. You only ever obtain 6 characters in your party, but you can only use 3 of them at a time in battle. You do have to build up their stats by leveling up, especially Yamcha because his accuracy sucks early game, but you never end up having to do much experience grinding. Unless of course you're trying to win the secret fight against Broly, because holy shit is he strong. It's a real shame that this game never got a sequel, especially after it teased at one in the ending. I am happy, however, that we are getting another turn-based RPG Dragon Ball game, Dragon Ball Fusions, in December. It's not the sequel to Attack of the Saiyans that I wanted, but I'm sure it'll still be great regardless, and while you wait for it to come out, you should seriously consider getting Attack of the Saiyans for yourself. If you're a fan of turn-based RPGs, you won't regret it. Dragon Ball Revenge of King Piccolo for the Wii is basically Advanced Adventure, but better in almost every way. It's like Advanced Adventure is New Super Mario Bros. 2, and Revenge of King Piccolo is Super Mario 3D Land. They control the same, they're in the same environments, they use the same mechanics, but one is in a limited 3D plane while the other is strictly a 2D side-scroller. They even both have battle modes, which are again sometimes incorporated into the main story. The biggest difference is that Revenge of King Piccolo covers less of the Dragon Ball story, only going from the Red Ribbon Army saga through the King Piccolo saga. However, this doesn't mean there's less content. Revenge of King Piccolo also covers the Colonel Silver sections, which Advanced Adventure didn't, and while Muscle Tower and the Undersea Cave were each their own levels in Advanced Adventure, Revenge of King Piccolo splits them into sub-levels. Much like Advanced Adventure, some of these sub-levels are just boss battles, while others are full-fledged levels. There are also now many treasures to find in each stage, giving some nice callbacks to more obscure items from the series. These replace the health and key power-ups from Advanced Adventure, which now have to be bought in a shop separate from the main game. This is probably the one thing that Advanced Adventure did better than Revenge of King Piccolo, which knowing about sooner would have saved me a lot of grief against the final boss. This game is also fully voice-acted, which, while I love all the Funimation voice actors and actresses, Goku really needs to learn when to shut up. Like, Goku, this isn't your traffic safety PSA. Stop telling me to yield! Dragon Ball Z Budokai was the game that introduced me to the Dragon Ball franchise in the first place. My friend brought his GameCube to a summer daycare place we both went to one day, and had both Luigi's Mansion and Budokai. This was around the time that Nicktoons had started airing Dragon Ball Z Kai, but unlike most people, I had enough common sense to be like, who's that guy? And who's that guy? And why do they hate each other? And who's that guy? So I went back and watched Dragon Ball first, so that I had a basic understanding of the characters. Jesus, I have no idea how so few people did that. Anyways, this friend was the guy who first told me about Dragon Ball, but I've probably surpassed even his knowledge about the franchise at this point. I would say I'm forever indebted to him, but I lent him my Infernape for my original run of Pokemon Platinum and never got it back, so I suppose we're even now. Digressions aside, I was eventually able to play Budokai for myself via the HD collection featuring it in Budokai 3. The graphics look very outdated nowadays, but the animations are extremely fluid in both gameplay and in the cutscenes, which is more than I can say about the stiff old Tenkaichi 2. The story mode only covers the Saiyan Saga through the Cell Game Saga, much like the original run of Dragon Ball Z Kai, but there are plenty of what-ifs and side modes that you can do to unlock more attacks, transformations, and even some hidden characters to use outside the story mode. Another big plus it has over the other Budokai games is that you don't have to manually equip attacks and transformations to characters in story mode. It does it for you, following whatever happens in the story. As the game that set the standard for almost every Dragon Ball game that followed it, Budokai is a damn good game that's really worth checking it out if you haven't yet. Yeah, that's right, I think Ultimate Tenkaichi is a better game than Budokai 1. Come at me. Rock, paper, scissors simulator my ass. That game uses 3 moves, this one only needs 2. X and Y. Here's the thing, when you attack your opponent, you have to try to hit the button that they don't, but when you're getting attacked, you have to try to hit the same button that they do. Successfully attacking will send the loser into a chain of combos that can keep going in many directions. Now you may be thinking, oh, so it's random which one they do, and no, it is not. See, it's all about reading your opponent's patterns. Every enemy AI will either press the same button every time, or alternate between them. Then, after a cutscene, they may switch up their pattern to the opposite. Oh, so it's all trial and error then? No! Only the first 2 attacks are trial and error, so you can figure out their pattern, which makes it extra important that you make the first 2 attacks, not your opponent. Then, if you get attacked, you can switch your brain to push the opposite button than you were going to if you attacked. You're always on your toes in this game. Oh, but how am I supposed to read my opponent in a multiplayer fight? Well, maybe this game was intended for single player. If you want to play multiplayer, why don't you go play Battle of Z? Oh, I just went there. After doing enough combos, specifically Y ones, yes, it's kind of repetitive, you'll build up a meter that allows you to do awesome looking special attacks. Speaking of awesome looking, the graphics in this game look amazing. This is by far the best looking Dragon Ball game there is, and I would love to see another game done in this style in the future. Besides that one. The only thing that really bothers me with this game is the voice acting. Since many of the games cover the same parts of the story, Funimation voice clips are frequently reused. However, this was the first game to also use some voice clips from Dragon Ball Z Kai, so sometimes the voice actors will switch in the middle of speaking. This is especially noticeable with Frieza, who switched from a female to a male voice actor.
Every time I transform, my power becomes far greater.
I still have 2 transformations left. You understand what that means?
Watch carefully. You should feel honored. You'll be the first to ever see me in this form.
What? This is the mighty Frieza's second transformation!
It doesn't bother me too much though, because the game still looks great while the voices are being all whack. There are also giant battles, but they're just QuickTime events and button mashing, so they're not very good. Better than Battle of Z's though. This is also the first game to feature character creation. Before Xenoverse, before Battle of Z's costume color changes, you could create your own male Saiyan, teach him attacks, customize him to look like other characters, and have him go through his own story where he turns into a Super Saiyan by training with Piccolo, and fights a bunch of GT characters that they were too lazy to put in the main story. Have fun with that. Despite sharing some issues with Budokai 2 that Budokai 1 did better, Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 is an overall improvement to them both. Like Supersonic Warriors, each character is given their own story mode, which sometimes dabbles in what-ifs, movies, and GT, especially when they're replayed. This is also the first game to introduce the free-flying map overworld system, which became a staple in the series. Despite most to all of the what-if fusions and absorptions and Majins being taken out from Budokai 2, many of the core elements of that game still remain. The controls and mechanics are basically identical, Future Trunks can still go Super Saiyan 2, and everything feels very much the same. So what makes Budokai 2 number 10 and Budokai 3 number 4? It's simple. More content, more side modes, less tedium in the story mode, more strategic combat with teleport dodges and auto-refilling ki, dragon rushes that look awesome, which work the same way as Ultimate Tenkaichi by the way, and nobody complains about that, and the HD version just looking beautiful. Is there any more that needs to be said? Originally tied for the number 1 spot on my top 10 list, Dragon Ball Raging Blast 2 is one of the most highly acclaimed, if not the most highly acclaimed Dragon Ball game in the franchise. I always found this a bit peculiar, as the game doesn't even have a story mode. Then I played it. Oh my god, the battle system in this game is amazing. There are tons of unique combos you can do, and you can specify what super attacks you want to give your character from a preset list of them, even being able to customize your ultimate attack. But if there's no story mode, how do you get these attacks? Galaxy mode, a mode where every single character among 66 of them has a set of battles to go through, some of which are extremely difficult. This is also how you unlock new characters, some of which aren't in any other Dragon Ball game in existence, such as androids 14 and 15, the members of Cooler's Armored Squadron who aren't Salza, Tarble, Vegeta's brother from the 2008 OVA Yo Son Goku and His Friends Return, and Hachiok from the special Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans, which a reanimated version of is included in the game. I heard somewhere that Hachiok returns in Xenoverse 2, but I can't confirm or deny this yet. Also, this game looks beautiful. Before Ultimate Tenkaichi came around, this was the best looking Dragon Ball game. But I wish it had something more, something greater. Sure, it has Super Saiyan 3 Broly and Vegeta like its predecessor, that's great and all those characters that I mentioned earlier, but I want more. I want more characters. I want Dragon Ball characters. I want Dragon Ball GT characters. I want giant characters. I want characters that no one would ever want to play as, like Yajirobe and Master Roshi and freaking Hercule. I want...
Goku? No, wait. Sorry, but you've mistaken me for someone else.
Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. We got the Saiyan Saga, we got the Frieza Saga, we got the Android Saga, we got the Buu Saga, we got the Dragon Ball Saga, we got the GT Saga, we got the What If Saga, and we got the Special Saga, featuring fights from all the movies except for these ones. But you don't even need this one, because we got the Garlic Jr. Saga, so we can recreate Dead Zone in Versus mode, a mode that this game doesn't have, and literally every other game on this list does have. Jesus Christ, Battle of Z, you never cease to disappoint me. Go to your room. This game has 97 playable characters, one of the largest character rosters in a fighting game of all time. Combos are repetitive, and other than differing super attacks and ultimates, the characters really feel mostly the same. However, the motion controls for the Wii version of this game are so much better than those in Tenkaichi 2. When I put the Wii Remote and Nunchuk to my side to do a Kamehameha, then I lunge them forward from there, I feel like I'm doing a Kamehameha. That's a feeling that no other Dragon Ball game has been able to replicate. Not even for Connect. But why? Why is this my number 2 spot? Honestly, it's just nostalgia. This was my first Dragon Ball game. I've played it more than any other one, but no matter how many times I pick it up and play it, I never get tired of it. Even after unlocking every single character, which, believe me, is a long and arduous process, I still have tons of fun just messing around as different characters. There are certain what-if scenarios outside of the what-if saga that you can actually trigger in the story mode by defeating your opponent without triggering the final cutscene. These include fighting Tambourine as Kid Chi-Chi after Kid Goku defeats King Piccolo, fighting Dabura as Super Saiyan 2 Goku after defeating Majin Vegeta, fighting Broly as Master Roshi after waiting a long time as Goku, which actually somewhat happens in the movie, by the way. Trying to find all of these small secrets gives this game so much replay value, and you can play different kinds of tournaments at different times of the day, which can be kind of tedious because you need to do very specific things to unlock some of these characters, but it's still a joyride. I get more enjoyment from playing this game than I do from any other game in the series. It never gets frustrating, it never gets too tedious, and it never gets too boring. But it's not number 1. Despite the nostalgia, despite the Kamehameha, despite the amazing character roster, there is one that is greater. There is one that truly makes me feel like I'm in an actual fight from the show. There is one game, one fantastically glorious game that is the reason why I did the first Dragon Ball week to begin with, why I made the original top 10 Dragon Ball games list to begin with, and that game is... Dragon Ball Xenoverse. Even more than Supersonic Warriors or Budokai 3, this game really makes me feel like part of the action. Through creating my own character who can be any race, human, Saiyan, Namekian, Frost Demon, or Majin, male or female for all except the Namekian who can only be male, this game offers a much more varied character creation system than Ultimate Tenkaichi. And it's not just for a dumb side mode, it's for the main story. Someone is out there changing the events of the story you know and love, The story you've been through so many times, in so many games, and so many episodes and movies, and you are the only one who can set things straight. What if one day you went to rewatch the Saiyan saga and everything was different? Wouldn't you feel betrayed that the story you've seen so many times is suddenly so unfamiliar to you? You'd want to change it back, to make it normal again. And if the only way to do that is to immerse yourself into the events of the show, then freaking do it! Yes, much like Battle of Z, a game I loathe because of its unnecessary difficulty, the game gets really hard about halfway through and does not let up. I had to resort to spamming weak ki blasts from afar, learning moves that did ridiculous amounts of damage just so I could spam them to win. But imagine if you were placed in the Dragon Ball world. If you were capable of doing infinite Kamehamehas to defeat your enemy, wouldn't you? I know I kind of sound like a hypocrite because of Super Trunks' whole maximum blow thing in Battle of Z, but here's the thing. In Battle of Z, you spam that specific move because it's something you have to do. In Xenoverse, you can spam any powerful move because it's something you have to do. For now. There are very few scenarios where the enemy AI can do something you can't, like give itself super armor. But there are unfortunately still scenarios like that. But there are ways to get past that. And, just like in the show, you can only get stronger through training. In Attack of the Saiyans, there aren't many situations where you have to grind for experience. But if you did, that'd be okay, because training like that fits with the theme of the show. When you have to grind in order to win the secret Broly fight during the post-game, that's okay, because training is what people do in the show. Goku can't defeat Beerus? He trains. Vegeta can't defeat Goku? He trains. Frieza can't defeat anyone? He trains until he gains the strength of a god. And you, the player, in Dragon Ball Xenoverse, can train under any master, allies or foes from the series, and learn their attacks. When you got new attacks for your created character in Ultimate Tenkaichi, you were like, okay, cool, I have this now. When you get new attacks for your created character in Xenoverse, you're like, I earned this by training with the character who knows the move best. You can also get new moves by doing parallel quests, which are missions that are separate from the main story, including transformations for Saiyans, such as Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Vegeta, which I think is just an Ascended Super Saiyan, and Super Vegeta 2, which I think is just an Ultra Super Saiyan, I don't know. And they could have been like Battle of Z and say that the story mode and parallel quests are all you get, but they didn't. There is a versus mode, and a ton of other characters besides your created one to play as. And since you're not required to use your character for every parallel quest, you can just whip out your pre-order bonus Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta and wreck shop with him because you're not strong enough, and you need to train under masters like Goku and Beerus and Hercule, and you beat those missions and save the franchise that you love so much. And then after you do it all, unlocking every single character, you go back and you play some of those missions that you found to be so difficult in the middle of the game, and you dominate them, because you're stronger now, because you trained under Cell and Vegeta and Hercule. And while Budokai Tenkaichi 3 will always hold a special place in my heart, and Xenoverse was much more frustrating, much more tedious, and sometimes even much more repetitive, no other Dragon Ball game has ever given me the same experience that Xenoverse did. And that's what makes me worried about Xenoverse 2. Sure, as a game it'll be structurally better, with better hit detection, more characters, and more moves, but can it really give me the same experience that Xenoverse 1 did? Or will it just feel like it's trying too hard to surpass its predecessor and focus on technical improvements only? Would it just be more worth it to replay Xenoverse 1? Now that I'm done with this list, I guess I'll have to find out. I'm MattCraft.derp, and I'll see you guys next time for MattCraft Plays Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, where I'll be giving my first impressions of the game as I play. Thank you all, despite how few of you there may be, for listening to my ramblings for this long.